Friends, today's story is about a beautiful girl who gets married to a boy who earns well. But then suddenly, a time comes when she is forced to work in people's homes. She starts hating her husband a lot. But why does this happen? What is the reason that she begins to hate the husband she once loved dearly? And why is she so helpless that a beautiful girl like her is forced to work in people's homes to feed herself? To know all this, make sure to watch today's story till the end. So friends, let's begin today's story. Rabia used to work at our house. She was from Abidjan. Often men do not hesitate to marry a second time, and women, fearing insecurity, accept a co-wife because once a girl is married, her family tries to ensure she stays in her husband's home, even if he brings in another wife. One day, Rabia was working at our house. It was noon. There was a knock at the door. She looked through the peephole and immediately came to me, looking worried, and said, "Madam, please tell the person at the door that no Rabia works here." Her words left me surprised. "Madam, that's my husband. He threw me out of the house, and now he's looking for me. I would be very grateful if you could tell him that no Rabia works here." I didn't want to lose such a good worker, so I went to the door. I was surprised to see that the man outside looked like a nobleman. There was an expensive car parked outside, likely his. He did not seem like the husband of a maid. I asked, "Brother, whom do you want to meet?" "Rabia, sister. She is my wife. Someone told me she works at your house." "No, brother, you are mistaken. No woman by this name works here." The man, disappointed, got into the car and left. I turned to Rabia and asked, "Tell me the truth, Rabia. What is this all about?" Rabia had been working at my house for 2 years. She began to tell me. She had never given a reason for complaint. She was indeed a graceful woman and seemed to come from a good family. She said, "Madam, this is a long story and there's work to be done." I said, "Forget the work. I'll order food from a hotel. Tell me what's going on. You work in people's homes and your husband came in such an expensive car. Is he some kind of nobleman?" She replied, "He is not a nobleman, but he's a very wealthy landowner. It's just my fate that I'm working as a servant." With these words, she began to tell her story. "Madam, when we got married, our days and nights were filled with happiness, just like any other couple in love. My husband was deeply in love with me. If I went to my parents' home for 2 days, he would get upset and say, 'Rabia, I can't spend time without you. I feel like you should never be away from me, even for a moment. If I were an emperor, I'd have your hand on my shoulder even while ruling.' Hearing these things, I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. My feet barely touched the ground. I had unwavering faith in my husband's love, like one has in the existence of God. I thought that the world might turn upside down, the sun might rise in the west, but my husband would never change. 5 years passed peacefully. My husband had inherited a large amount of wealth from his father, but that same wealth eventually became the reason for our separation. When we didn't have children even after 5 years, his relatives started filling his ears with doubts, saying, "Sir, where will all this wealth go? Who will inherit it? If a woman can't have children, a man should marry again before it's too late. If you wait until you're old, when will you enjoy the happiness of children?" My husband listened to these things, and I heard them too and laughed them off, thinking that these people were out of their minds. I thought, if a woman can't have children, a man marries again. If the situation were reversed, would a woman bring another man? The truth was, I believed that my husband would never forget his love for me and marry another woman because of our lack of children. His love was his life, and it was embedded in every part of him. How could it be possible that he would take off this precious necklace of love from my neck and put it on someone else's? I lived in such a happy illusion, not knowing that this world can change quickly, where a woman's love can be as strong as a rock. A man's love can sometimes be just convenience and can change any day. If he sees a beautiful woman, he can't control his heart, while a decent woman considers one man's love as the purpose of her life, no matter how many men she sees. One day, someone informed me that Ahmad had married another woman. This news hit me like the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. My heart was scorched, and I lost hope of ever feeling happy again. Eventually, this could no longer be hidden from me, and I had to be told. One day, he brought the other woman, now his wife, home. Accepting what had happened was inevitable. I loved my husband, so causing trouble for Ahmad or demanding a separation was painful for me. I swallowed this bitter pill and stayed quiet. My mother also advised me to stay at my husband's home and live with the co-wife. She said I wouldn't find happiness at my parents' home and would only become a burden to my brothers and sisters-in-law. Your own home is your own, and Ahmad's behavior towards you won't change. Men marry again for the sake of having sons, and he is wealthy, so this isn't unusual. Men do such things, and who can stop them? Even princesses and queens endure co-wives and bear it. Accepting my fate, I decided to endure, thinking that if I didn't consider her a co-wife, life would be better. Both the man's peace and our peace would remain intact. I never saw her as a co-wife, but despite my good behavior, she always considered me a thorn in her side. She would ruin the peace of the house in every way she could. Slowly, Ahmad also began to grow distant from me. Instead of seeing my husband's actions, I closed my eyes like a pigeon. I don't know what spell Ruqya cast on him, but my husband stopped caring for me. I even tolerated that. Many times Ahmad, listening to her false complaints, treated me harshly, but I bore it all with patience. I took care of the co-wife's children, served them, and loved them more than a mother because they were Ahmad's children, so they were dear to me. Children crave love, and they became crazy about me. They were always around me and loved me more than their mother. This was also unacceptable to her, so she would scold those innocent kids harshly. One day, my cousin brother came to visit me. My mother was very sick in Kumasi, and he came to inform me. He considered me his own sister, and I never imagined that my co-wife would accuse me of something so terrible. Poor Harun barely sat for a minute and didn't even drink the tea. He just informed me about my mother and left. I don't know how Ruqya twisted this to Ahmad, but he said to me, "You bring other men into the house when I'm not here. Don't you have any sense of decency? Aren't you ashamed? He was your cousin, not Ruqya's. Why didn't you observe proper conduct with him?" Ruqya didn't even come into the room where we were sitting. He said, "You leave my house right now. I don't need a loose woman in my home. My daughters are young now, but when they grow up, what will happen? Will they also be labeled because of you? I can't keep you here anymore." Was I ever truly happy that I could be devastated now? I stayed there thinking that no one should question my integrity, believing that the house belonged to my husband. But now, during the harsh cold, without a shawl over my head or shoes on my feet, he grabbed me by the arm and threw me out. I stood in the veranda for a while, The children came out and hugged me crying, but that cruel man pulled them away, locked them in a room, and threw me out of the house. Barefoot, I walked several miles in the severe cold to the city and took refuge in the home of some acquaintances. They kindly supported me as I collapsed on the floor from exhaustion and shock. My feet were swollen from walking. The man who had once claimed to love me so much had thrown me out with just the clothes on my back. My mother passed away. My sisters-in-law let me stay for a few days. Then they told me to reconcile with my husband and co-wife and return home. They said, "Will you live like this forever? Your brothers think the same. But a woman, even if she is like gold, is still human. She also has dignity and self-respect. She is not a clay idol." Today they said this, and if I had gone back and pleaded with them, they would have treated me even worse tomorrow. So instead of going back, I chose to work in people's homes. I left Kumasi and returned to Abidjan, staying with a friend for a few days. My days were wasted looking for work. My heart was never at ease. Sometimes memories of my husband's love and his betrayal made me cry tears of blood. I was fed up with the world, thinking I wished I could end my life. Sometimes I felt like tearing my hair and clothes and wandering the streets like a madwoman, hoping it would bring some peace. But I controlled myself and started working in people's homes, despite being the wife of a wealthy man. After a long time, someone told me that my co-wife had fallen ill with a strange fever that drove her mad. She would run out of the house bareheaded and barefoot, not caring about her clothes. She would scream and shout, and they would bring her back, saying, "Come home." But she would reply, "Leave me alone, I have no home." She would bang her head against the walls and pull her hair. Hearing about her condition made me very sad. I loved the children, and I could only imagine the state of children with a mad mother. Everyone knows how terrified they must have been. And in the absence of their mother, those innocent children must be suffering. If I were there, I would have hidden them under my wings and held them close to my heart. I can only imagine their condition now. A few days later, that poor woman was hit by a bus while crossing the street, and she died. After her death, Ahmad remembered me. He made great efforts to bring me back home. Many times he visited the houses where I worked. Whenever we met, my blood would boil. His betrayal had ignited a fire of hatred in me. I refused to go with him. When the heart doesn't agree, why deceive anyone? I can say today that a woman's hatred can be stronger than her love. Our formal relationship had ended, and when the heart's connection is broken, why would I reconnect for worldly ties? He kept looking for me, and I kept changing houses. Eventually, I found work in distant colonies so that he couldn't find me. He must have inquired about me at the old house where I used to work. I occasionally visited there, and they must have given him this address. I hear that he can't focus on anything and is always troubled. He repents but finds no peace. Breaking someone's heart, especially when it holds true love, is no trivial matter. He treated my life like a toy and discarded it after playing. Sometimes my heart softens for the children who loved me. I feel like going back to them, worried that they might get a stepmother who isn't kind. But my heart can't forgive Ahmad. A time comes when a person becomes helpless against their own heart. I too am a prisoner of my heart. When I heard Rabia's entire story, I advised her, "Yes, he wronged you greatly, but maybe he has learned his lesson and is now on the right path. Give him one more chance, meet him once again, and try to rebuild your life together. Make heaven with your children and husband. I try to convince her every day to give him one more chance. He's already paid for his unfaithfulness. There's some hope now that she might agree. Please pray that God removes the hatred from her heart and restores love and affection for her husband. Humans are prone to making mistakes. But here, I have a message for the boys as well. Please don't make someone's daughter your pride. Shower her with love. Make her life heaven. And then, without any reason, make room in your heart for another girl. Yes, if you marry a second time for the sake of children. Though God is generous and can give children from the same wife, there is no harm in it. But remember, you must also do justice and fulfill the rights of both wives. If you can't do that, then don't marry a second time. What do you think, friends? Am I right? Then please share your thoughts about today's story in the comment box.